Well, Rob Goddard, thank you so much for this conversation that we're about to have. It is quite an honor to be able to host you as you share really at the most important time for many people, and that is in the midst of a crisis, you sharing how it's possible to build a business in the midst of a recession is quite a gift. So thank you for being so generous with your time and your wisdom.
Pleasure. Lovely to catch up with you again, Andrea.
Well, I know you as an investor, as a business owner, and now motivational speaking. It's been really fun to watch your evolution over the last 3 years. So we met at my event, Speak from the Heart, which was hosted in London. And you got up on that stage and shared your personal story, and everyone in the room was completely moved. And so over the last few years, to be able to work with you and see the launch of the second edition of your book, and now to see you sharing your story, but in a business context as well, to inspire entrepreneurs out there, it's really been wonderful to be a part of it and to watch
Fun, isn't it?
it.
The fun bit is yet to come.
Well, you seem to be having fun along the way. And I think what we should set up right up front, for most people, this is not feeling like a very fun time. Here we are in the midst of 2020, just coming out of this global pandemic. And so I really see this webinar as reaching kind of two audiences. The person who may have lost their job, or they're facing losing their job. This might be that critical moment where you're really taking stock of your life and realizing, I've always had this desire or this dream to strike out on my own. Well, this is a perfect time for you to be tuning in. But you may also be someone who is already in business, but you might be a little bit freaking out right now because of what has happened at the start of 2020 and the pressures that is putting on you. So whether you're in one or both of those camps, this conversation I think is going to help you a lot, because Rob, you have done what most of us would think is the impossible, dealing with the significant financial and even the emotional strain way back in 2008 and forward. You've done something that most of us would think is impossible. So I'm looking forward to you sharing, and I'd love it if you would actually share your slideshow with us, because it's really moving when we see it in pictures.
Yeah. Well, thank you for that wonderful opening and scene setting as well. You're right. These are difficult times for anyone that's listening to this. And as you say, whether it's someone that's been in corporate life that may be facing the spectre of redundancy or losing their job, or it might be a business owner right now that's really struggling to keep their head above water. And those are the two communities that we'll be speaking to. And I was looking at some statistics this morning about forecasted unemployment rates in the world. And this is just for the next 12 months. Would you believe in America, which is your home country, I know, there's a forecast of 19%, 19% unemployment in the States within 12 months. 1 in 5 people unemployed of the working population. The EU, nearly 10% is the forecast for the first 12 months. And of course, recessions don't just happen for 12 months. They go on usually for years. So there's some real signs out there that the employment and business conditions are changing. And so hence, really sharing a business message. There's business learnings in what I'm about to share, but also underlying that is the personal journey as well. Because if you're an owner manager, your business life is your personal life, and the other way around. So it's holistic in my view, and that's what I've come to learn. So I want to share a number of things with you. Okay, so I'm going to share with you. I'm going to walk you through some slides because visual is just as powerful as audio. And if anyone would like a copy of the slides, I can send you those, so you don't have to be making copious notes. So that's me. And these are the things I'm doing right now. I'm speaking both in the UK and overseas. I'm also investing in my own businesses and some other people's, and I'm coaching and mentoring as well. And this is the life that I'm having fun with and have had a lot of fun with. but it hasn't always been like that. And life wasn't fun. You indicated, Andrea, that back in 2008 there was a life change for me, and that's true. In 2008, my life collapsed. I want to take up the story from 2008 and then walk you through key things that have happened, and maybe there's learnings in there and things that you can take away and implement in your own life starting this afternoon or tomorrow. Topic of this talk really is how to set up a successful business, or how to create a successful business if you've got one at the moment that and you're struggling. And yes, you can do it in a recession, because one of the things I battled with when I set up my own business in 2008 was depression, anxiety, stress, sleepless nights, being on prescribed medication. So everything's against you setting up a business in those situations. So I'm just going to share with you a few key things I've learned in business. Actually, to make yourself vulnerable is a good place to start in business, rather than some macho alpha male pretense and veneer in life. So I want to share a little bit about me, so that you can perhaps pick some things out that would help you in your journey. These are the takeaways from this session. I want to share with you my 10 tips for business success. There's lots of things I've experienced, but I've been able to distill it down to 10 key things that happened in my business life to make my businesses successful. I do want people to learn how to not just survive in life, because we're a long time dead. It will be good actually to enjoy the life that we have on this planet rather than just survive it. I do want to share with you things I did wrong, because I think, again, there's learnings for others. Learn from the pitfalls of others. There's wisdom in that, I think. And also allied to that, how can you turn a negative or a failure or something that didn't work out and turn it into a positive? Share with you a learning on the stages of business growth, and how to create the life that you really do want. If you're listening to this and your life is not where you want it to be, but you want to move on into something else, then I'll just share with you my experience over the past 12 years. So I ended up, when my life collapsed in 2008, I ended up a kilometre above the Earth's surface in Dubai, on top of the world's tallest building. And I was 13 seconds from ending my life, because I'd gone to the Burj Khalifa in order to find a way out and throw myself off, because I'd gone through 2 years of depression and having suicidal thoughts, and really felt I didn't have any other options in life. So that's me. It does look as though there's no barriers to jumping off. That's just an optical illusion. That's all glass. And I wanted to find a fire exit, because you can't jump from that building. You have to find a fire exit. And fortunately, on that day, and who knows, maybe that week, that fire exit door was closed. And that's why I'm talking to you today, is because someone locked that fire exit. So that was me, 2010. It's a long way down, isn't it? That actually helps when you're depressed and suicidal, is things aren't real, don't seem real. So to recap my life in 2008, I was married. I had several children. I had a 4-bedroom house. I had a good income. I was in the top 1% of earners in the UK. I was successful in my commercial career. My first 17, 18 years was in banking, and reached the levels of senior management. And the remaining years, the next 17 or so, have been in the SME life. So I've both been in corporate life, and I've been in the owner-managed space as well. In 2008, I was definitely hedonistic and materialistic. I can remember being on a Caribbean cruise with my wife at the time, enjoying the Caribbean sun, putting stuff on credit. There was an art auction going on throughout the week, and I got hooked up with, I got caught up rather, in the whole thing about buying art, and you can buy it live on ship. And of course, the downside, especially in those days, is you didn't have internet broadband, so you can't check things like prices. I got carried away. I bought 10 pieces of art on board ship. I didn't even know the price. I couldn't tell you what that bill was. When you're not looking at the price of things, you know you've got a problem. I was definitely a workaholic. Straight from 18, when I went into working life, it was all about work, career, success, money. My life up until my mid-40s in 2008 was about work, success, and money. Ironically, my relationship with money was pretty lousy. I know that because whilst I was earning a fair chunk of money every year, I was spending more than I was earning. And that's what I mean by a lousy relationship with money. Because when you're earning a lot of money, banks, financial institutions will lend you more. And of course, you get into a trap then. So, and I did. I could just about service the debt, and it was eye-watering levels of debt. But I was servicing it up until the point I lost my job, my marriage, and relationship with my children. And when you have one huge thing happen in your life, it's bad enough. When you have several, it's like the perfect storm. And I can remember, Andrea, I was just devastated. I went into an immediate fall. It was like going into an abyss. And I'd always thought that people that suffered from depression were weak, and that I was made of granite and it wouldn't touch me. And I was brought up short. So in the latter part of 2008, I went into a huge depressing cycle, which actually lasted for 4 to 5 years. I didn't know that at the time. I went to the doctors to get medication, and I thought if she gave me some pills and tablets, I'd be all right in 2 weeks. Just like a disease, a physical disease. And the doctor told me at the time, she just looked at me incredulously and said, "It will be years, Mr. Goddard, not a couple of weeks." So I was brought up short in life. I was in my mid-40s at that point. I thought I'd had life licked. I thought I'd found the success to life, and I hadn't. So after several months of soul searching and applying for jobs, I was applying at one point for 200 jobs a week because I had no job. And so I thought I'll try and find another one. I thought with my background, successes, wouldn't be a problem. Within a few weeks, I'd be back employed. No, I was too expensive. Well, what they say to you, of course, is you're too experienced, which means you're too expensive. And there aren't many jobs on £300,000 a year. So I was having no success. And so in November 2008, I made a monumental decision in my life, which I worked for myself. Now, and it may be that there's people listening to this right now that are thinking about that or have thought about that and never taken the leap. So this could be very interesting for you. I made the decision to go self-employed in November 2008, and a week later, Lehman Brothers went bust, and the world went mad, and we all jumped into a global banking crisis that lasted for many, many years. So not an ideal time to go self-employed. And maybe there's some echoes for us right now. Maybe there's some people thinking about going into business for themselves rather than on an employed basis.
Well, the other part of that really echoes is the emotional state that you were in. And that's, as a medical doctor and working with people with trauma, that can be predicted. What you experienced and what we're seeing now as a result of COVID-19 is, as your security falls and your financial level falls and your hope for finding a job, that is also falling, that risk of depression and even those suicidal thoughts, that goes up dramatically. So I'm certain that what you're talking about right now is echoing in the people who are tuning in today.
You're right, and in those few months of being out of work and depressed and having suicidal thoughts, I actually engaged a therapist, CBT, combined CBT and hypnotherapist, which was actually quite helpful. And one of the things he said to me has always stuck with me, which is I'd made my life, he said, it's like a chair with one leg. My life revolved around my job and money and nothing else, not people, not family, not network of friends and other things. So it was all about the job and money and success. And he said that leg has been taken away and a one-legged chair just falls to the ground. And that's where you are, Rob. So you're absolutely right, Andrea. The first time in my life, I felt totally, utterly out of control and circumstances were controlling me and I couldn't do anything about it. But I did have this one glimmer of hope, some light at the end of the tunnel, when I thought, well, I'll go self-employed. I've got decades of experience in business. Someone's going to want to pay me for that in some shape or form. And then I started thinking about, well, what are the advantages and benefits of being self-employed? So I thought, definitely have freedom. No one telling me what to do. Once I've got it up and running, I'd have so much leisure time, I wouldn't know what to do with it because I could work from the beach, work a few hours a day, and life would be fantastic. Definitely take lots more holidays. I wouldn't have the stress, anxiety, and suicidal thoughts because I'm in control of my destiny because I'm self-employed and I'm 100% owner in my business and not having to report to anyone. I could make the decision this morning and implement it in the afternoon. And I know this is talked about a lot on the internet and particularly YouTube, financial freedom and independence, which I have to say, I think is a myth. But we'll come on to that a bit later. So, of course, those 6 things, attractions, weren't true. But those are the things I was searching for. Oh, sorry, 7 things. I wanted to give up, retire early, very wealthy man, and live the life, maybe a beach in Barbados, sitting in a hammock with having drinks brought to me by the seaside. If you're thinking about going self-employed, some or all of those things might happen, but they won't happen the day you go self-employed. None of that. I'd like to share a journey of one of my businesses. I own several businesses, not just in the UK, but in Europe and in Dubai. I also mentor and coach other business owners, and I work for 2 charities as well. And I've got 6 children. So I've got quite a hectic life, but I'd like to zoom in on one of my businesses because I think it might be helpful for people who are looking at this. The learnings I found, having not been self-employed or working for myself ever in my life, I spent 30 years in the corporate world. Sorry, I'd spent 25 years in the corporate world. So I was only used to being employed, 30 years being employed. So from left to right, the red bar is turnover, revenue of this business. The yellow bar is profit before tax, bottom line, somebody call it, which is sanity, not vanity. So the expression goes. And the purple column is net asset value. So if you're familiar with a balance sheet for a company, it's what the company owns minus what it owes. And that netting off is what the business is worth as net asset value, balance sheet value. So there's some interesting things I would show on this. That business growth isn't linear. And many business owners think, people going into business, trying to get the right angle there, is linear. So it starts at one point and then goes up in a nice linear fashion. It doesn't. The other myth is that people often think that a hockey stick growth curve. I've got a Canadian colleague running a Dubai operation. He's Canadian, and we talk about Canadian hockey stick growth curve. So when someone's pitching for investment to me, often they'll have quite a plateauing in their business financially. And then as soon as the investment's made, whoosh, it's not real. I don't think they believe it. And certainly the investor doesn't believe it. So both of those are myths in my experience. My experience is this, and I found that business growth comes in segments. It's a bit like Russian steps. So for the first 4 years of running my own business, whilst coping with depression, suicide, and suicidal thoughts, um, there was a little bit of growth, but you might find difficulty on your screen trying to see it in comparison to future years. But I had 4 years of that. And then there's a midsection where the numbers start to grow as I take on staff and start to get some sustainability. And then there's been growth in most recent years. So one of the learnings I've found in business is that business growth isn't linear. It's like Russian steps. So if you're either thinking about starting a business, don't think you're going to get rich quick in the next 3 months, because you probably won't. And again, on social media, you'll see a lot of people promising to be a millionaire in 3 months. If only you bought their mastermind or their book. I have to say that's not my experience, and I've never met anyone that's done that unless they got really lucky. It's hard work working for yourself. It takes a long time. So,
I have
and it comes in segments. Sorry, Andrea.
Yeah, so I think it's wonderful that you've broken this down into the segments. There are two things I'd love for you to kind of frame up for us. One is just to explain the nature of this business, because I think that that's relevant. But the second thing is, the first part of your presentation would give any of us hope. Like, okay, he was facing recession, the loss of the marriage and the kids, plus, his own emotional challenges with depression, and yet you struck out on your own, and we know that you're successful today. So in the beginning of this presentation, we're all feeling hopeful. We look at this slide and we're now saying, okay, I might have 4 years of just sort of barely making it, or making it, but not to the level that you were previously. What was it inside of you that gave you the hope or the perseverance to keep going in that first slug of time? Because I think that's what people are going to be facing today.
Right. No, it's a really good question. The business in question, to answer your first question, is involved in helping business owners grow their businesses and then find an exit. So mergers and acquisitions, something I did for someone when I was employed. So I had a 7-year apprenticeship. So that's a key thing, is if you think about going self-employed, maybe stick to something that you know and that you're expert in, and that you've been trained at someone else's expense before you launch out. So that's the nature of the business. I still have the business. The other question is, it's a cracking question. It's about resilience, isn't it? And resilience is a muscle. You and I have spoken about it. In fact, we've written a book together on resilience, the 10 traits of resilient people. I think you have it behind you.
Exactly.
I'm not a quitter. Like when I used to play chess, particularly with my dad, who was always better than me. For some reason, he's logical. He's an accountant. I would never accept that I was going to lose in chess. Even and some of you that understand or play chess will know that you kind of know that you've lost the game before you've actually lost the game. So you knock your king over, and that is a sign to your opponent that you resign. I never did that. I would always wait until I was completely hemmed in and couldn't move anywhere else. So I think there is something in me that doesn't like to give up. Also, I had children, and I had financial commitments. I had some huge debts. I needed to keep going. So, and I've often said that really good salespeople are hungry. And I'm a sales guy. Last 40 years, I've been in sales, both in corporate and SME. So I guess it's a combination of things. One of the things I did find as I was working through this is the help of other people. Not masses of people, but 2, 3, 4 people that very close to me, or became very close to me, because I started to open up about what I was thinking and feeling and trying to achieve. And, to have someone in the trenches with you that cares, I think is essential. So I didn't do this on my own. No way.
Yeah. Mentors and allies, they are what help us heroes, thrive. So thank you for sharing that.
So here's the timeline, because I think it's helpful to sort of look chronologically. I never picked self-employment. I didn't have this wonderful moment where I'd invented something and thought the world needs to buy it. I was dragged kicking and screaming through circumstances. I didn't choose to work for myself. Um, I managed to secure a few clients, but one of them was 70% of my overall turnover. Now, it didn't bother me at the time because I was just happy to have them as a big client. And I remember starting going first class on train journeys. It's not a huge difference in money, but I just felt I'm a business owner. I can go first class on a train. You know, I can get the socket for the electricity. I can have a bit of space and nicer seats. These are the rewards and trappings of owning your own business. So I wasn't Warren Buffett at that point, but it just gave me a little, I guess it's a little lift, isn't it? But I had one client that was 70% of my revenue, and they then stopped after 18 months. So that's something I learned, is don't put your eggs into one basket, is the expression. If you've got, I would say, if you've got more than 30%, if you're an existing business owner, more than 30% of your revenue is coming from one client, you need to change that. Ideally, you don't want any client representing more than 15%. But I lost this client, and that just clapped my business. So I did a geographic, as my friend Dr. Mark Goulson said in California. I ran away because I'd been struggling with depression for 2 years. I was still I'd moved from antidepressant and sleeping tablets to alcohol. So I was self-medicating on booze. And I then went down a deeper cliff. So I went through depression, a second cycle of depression, because of this one client, and for good reason. It wasn't their fault; it was me. I'd gotten complacent because of money was coming from one source. So I ran away. I thought if I jumped on a plane to a new country that I've never been to before, my problems would go away. And of course, your problems come with you, don't they, on that airplane? So I ended up in the United Arab Emirates in Dubai, and on a commission-only job. So it wasn't even a salary, but at least I'd have something to focus on. And I spent up to a year there. It was really hard work. It was commission-only, no marketing budget, no data. I got a telephone and a business card and an office that I could work from. But it was like, go for it. Find your own data, find your own clients, and then share some of your commission with the company that I went out there with. And anyone that's worked in the UAE will know that it is a land of opportunity, but it can also be very harsh, particularly if you're on commission only. If you're on £1 million salary a year, it's very different in Dubai. You've got the 5-star lifestyle. But however, that year in Dubai was a learning experience for me. I learned how to create business from nothing. I had no leads given to me. I had to generate my own leads. I had no data, so I had to find my own data. So I sharpened up, and all under the temperatures of 40, 50 degrees during the summer months, which is a killer for a Westerner and an overweight Westerner. And you've been out there last year, Andrea, haven't you? That sun can be quite harsh when you're out on it.
That is intense. I mean, every time I hear your story, I'm like, you did what?
Maybe a subject for another is, how did I create something from nothing? But we haven't got time on this one. But I did, but it didn't work for me. And in 2010, I did make the attempt to take my own life from Burj Khalifa. I didn't, because of the locked fire exit. And I went back to my apartment and I contacted my friend Alex Petty, who's a business coach and a life coach by trade, but he was a friend. And I flew him over. I didn't tell him the full extent of why I wanted to fly him over. And we spent 4 days, mainly poolside at my apartment. And he was just asking me questions. It was brilliant. And one of the key questions was, what do you really want in life? Because I've seen your fridge, Rob, and there's nothing green in it. It's alcohol and meat. I thought, cheeky's been going through my fridge. But he was right. And I said, oh, I don't know. I did the typical man thing. Oh, I don't know what I want. And he said, but if you did know what you want, what would it look like? Wow, what a fantastic follow-up question. He didn't let me off the hook, Alex. So we spent 4 days, and I then decided that I'd return back to the UK. It did take me a couple of months to tie up loose ends, but I returned back to the UK, and I set up a new business right at the start of 2011. And I did make a loss in that first year. So I didn't make a big profit. I mean, largely because I employed someone as well as me. And that person's still with me today. And I wouldn't be without her. And she's had all sorts of job titles. She's employee 002. I early on made the decision that I could be a one-person band, or I could, as soon as there was a bit of cash coming through, I'd make my first hire to help me, because I'm a really good sales guy. I'm rubbish at admin. I'm a big picture person, not a detail person. So I recognized my shortcomings, and I needed someone who is detail orientated and can keep me on the right path. And that is Kay, and she still is. So we did make a profit in year 2. And here's the thing. A lot of business owners I've met over the years don't pay themselves the going rate for their job and responsibility. They somehow pay themselves last. Well, actually, you should be the first person, because you're the most valuable asset in a micro business. You should make sure that the business pays you what you're worth.
That's so crucial, Rob, because I do think that most entrepreneurs, as soon as there's enough money to hire that first person or a contractor, when the next big chunk of money comes in, they think, oh, I need to expand more. Maybe it's ads, or maybe it's another person, instead of paying themselves. That's so common.
Yeah, because you're probably the most important asset in the business. So look after yourself. Roll forward in 2 years down the line now, several staff, also contractors. So when you're growing a business, what you don't tend to want is lots of people on payroll too early, because that's a fixed cost. You've got responsibilities as an employer. So it was a blend between taking on key hires as an employee, so you get their attention and their focus full time, but also working with contractors. So people that have skills and abilities that you can parachute in for particular assignments. It keeps your financial model flexible, and it means it doesn't clog up with lots of fixed costs that you've got to pay every month, regardless of how many clients you've got. So that's a tip if you want to get some momentum, is look at both. So now we're in year 3. So this is 3 years before it was sustainable. And when I mean sustainable, I mean the business generates its own cash. That doesn't mean to say that you don't need to keep finding new clients, but the pressure's off a little bit. Not quite often, particularly if you're the only person in your business, it's feast or famine. You go out, all marketing, networking, you get some clients, then you have to do delivery, and nothing happens on the marketing front because there's only you. So try to get out of that cycle as quickly as you can, and the best way of doing that is to work in association with someone or employ someone. But it took me 3 years to get a sustainable model. So these get rich quick plans, be a millionaire in 3 months, I say is bunk 'em. It's not my experience at all. It takes years, not months, to create a successful business. A key decision for me in 2015 was to employ a sales guy that was better than me. And interestingly, and I hope he sees this recording, he was my mentor, actually, unofficially. He was my boss in NatWest Bank in all those years ago in my corporate life. I love the way he sold. He was charismatic, he still is. Charismatic, great presenter, and I learned so much in my formative years in banking through Steve. And now he works for me. And he was one of those things, getting a salesperson that is far better than you. And Steve just doubled turnover. And if I couldn't afford him initially, and or the business couldn't afford him financially, so we reached an agreement where we do a commission only just for the first few months. And I've tried this before actually with salespeople. If they're so convinced that they're so certain that they're going to do a great job for you, let them come and work for you, self-employed, commission only. Then you'll see if they've got the hunger. So I took Steve on that basis the first few months, and he started bringing in clients. And then I was paying in commission, and then he was regularly bringing in clients. So I took him on to payroll, where he stayed, and he's still working in the team. He's our sales director now. And he's been instrumental in us becoming a 7-figure business. In 2016, I bought out, I had original seed investors. When I started the business in 2011, several individuals, we all put money in. We had £140,000. And that is a tip I'd share. If you want to go into business, try and have a nest egg or a war chest. There's nothing worse than chasing cash and being desperate, because you'll take on any type of client. So if you're thinking about going to business full time for yourself, save up first, or find someone to back you, or a number of people to back you. So I bought them out in 2016, and then I bought 3 new investors in, because investors are there for a journey, and then they're there for a season. They won't necessarily be with you on your entire journey. And I love that there is a glass ceiling, isn't there, with the S of SME, with the small businesses, is breaking $1 million turnover. And that took me, as you can see, 6 years. It took the business 6 years. But you can see by the way I say I associate myself with my business. It's inseparable.
Yeah, I've noticed that.
$1 million turnover. I don't know about other countries, but in the UK, 97% of businesses turn over less than £500,000. So we're already in the top 3% of companies in our country. Do you know, it's just a number, but it has so much significance. You think, wow. Because all those years ago, I had nothing. I was down to £1.50. I didn't even have enough for a Starbucks coffee. And I had to go halves with my friend Alex. We didn't have, I had 300, I had a lot of debt and very little cash. So off the back of breaking $1 million, I decided I wanted to go back to Dubai, having tried to end my life there in 2010, because I wanted to kill a couple of ghosts. I've been asked, why did you feel the drive to go back so much? And it's because I could have chosen not to. I could have ignored it, and I could have parked it somewhere and ignored it. But it would have been something. Every time something in the news about the UAE, every time I flew over the planet, particularly if I went through the Middle East, I'd be thinking, Dubai is where I failed.
Yeah.
You know, I didn't make it work sustainably and successfully. So I had to go back. It's a bit like the hero's journey, isn't it? Anyone that's familiar with the hero's journey? Mm-hmm. I think you have to go back and slay the dragon. Mm-hmm. And again, I would say UAE and Dubai, there's nothing wrong with that country. It's me that was the problem. It wasn't the country. It could have been any country. It just happened to be Dubai. So I went back 4 years ago to Dubai, and that is a successful business. And it still gives me a great smile on my face when I come out of the open doors at the airport terminal at Terminal 3. Because second time around, I made it work. First time I was defeated. I'd failed, but I had learnt a lot. And I'd also picked up quite a few connections in Dubai, which I then leveraged when I went back a second time. So don't give up, is what I would say, because I didn't. More latterly, businesses talk about cash. Businesses end up some businesses can run out of cash, not necessarily because they have a lack of clients. Actually, the reverse can often be true, is they've got too many clients, so they stack up their costs. And of course, your costs go out the door far quicker than clients can pay you. So it's about cash flow. And so I was really keen, as I've been growing the business and businesses, that cash is king and cash flow is. And it was my aim originally to have 3 months cash buffer in the business, so cash at bank. A lot of businesses don't have that. A lot of businesses got lucky to have a month's cash. So if they didn't get any clients or sign-ups or retained work that month, they're struggling to make payroll. So the aim is to try and get 3 months cash. It's a bit like in our personal lives, isn't it, Andrea? There is the old thing, the saying that you're 3 paychecks away from bankruptcy.
Yeah.
And it's the same in business. Cash is king. So I can remember hitting 10 months cash buffer. So we didn't need to sell for 10 months and we'd still be solvent. But that's too much cash, unless, of course, there's a recession coming.
And at this point, Rob, at that point, had you shifted your relationship with money? I mean, granted, this was the business money, it wasn't your own personal money, but
Yeah.
you shared earlier that you were just burning through cash even more than you were earning it. So were you tempted at this point?
Yeah, do you know what? That's a real. I knew you were the right person to approach to do this interview. Yeah, my relationship with money changed when I set up in business, and went through the experiences I did, and I had my safety net taken away. I wanted to make it work. So the thing, I knew what the logic was saying, in life, that you don't spend everything that you've got, and certainly don't spend more than you've got. But in a business, particularly if you've got employees, their livelihoods rely on you as the owner. So I felt that added responsibility, like you do as a father with a mother with children. You feel that added responsibility because other people's incomes are relying on your decisions. So I took it more seriously in business, and I've got investors, so they're going to give me a hard time.
Mm-hmm. Well, I think it's also important to
Money
note.
wisely.
I think it's also important to mention that you've shared this with me before, as you've been working with so many other business owners. There's a temptation as an entrepreneur to use your sort of business cash or your credit cards in the business name for your personal use.
Yeah.
Like that's a temptation, and you've seen it with so many of your clients, right?
I have, and it needs to be separated. Even if you are your only employee, there's personal and there's business, and never the twain shall meet. There needs to be a salary and maybe a bonus to pay your stuff, but seeing your company as a separate entity is really, really important. It isn't a piggy bank, and this is where sometimes business owners have a problem. That I've come across is they see it as their own cash, and it isn't. It's the company's cash. And if you've got fellow investors, it's your cash together. So my relationship with money has changed dramatically. It's a 180. And part of it was growing a business and having investors and staff. And the other one was that I don't want to go back to where I was in 2008. I don't want to go back there. That was just, it decimated my life. Arguably, there's too much. Arguably, you're not putting your cash to work at 10 months, but a healthy buffer, and don't spend everything you've got. So last year we broke the 2 million, because 1 million, once you've hit that, you want to go up, because I love the nature of what I do. I love helping business owners solve problems that they've got in their business, help them grow, and see them exit. That is, I'm on that journey myself, and I'm on that with many, many business owners. I have been over the years, and I'm with a number at the moment. So once you've broken 1 million, then why not go for 2? And it did take me 11 years. I'm earning more than I earned back in 2008 when I lost it. That took me 11 years to claw that back. Not 3 months, not a month, not a year. It took me a long, long time, but I've done it. And bringing it right up to date, in the UK, we've been tackling for 3 years with Brexit. And now, of course, Brexit finishes, we have a general election, and now the world deals with COVID-19. But, and I'm speaking on I've got a Q&A tomorrow, a webinar tomorrow, Q&A, about businesses adapting. I think the word pivot has been used a lot, a bit like unprecedented times. But you know what I mean? That as an SME, one of the advantages we have as private owned businesses is we can turn quite quickly. We're flexible, we're agile. So let's use that to our advantage. And that means that over the next 18 months, I can see us breaking new records. And that is, and I'm realistic. I'm not insulated, and my businesses aren't insulated from what's happening in the country and around the world. But the mindset is different. My mindset is different. I can see opportunity where there's adversity. So I did promise the 10 key things, the 10 steps that I took, and it may not be the same for you, but maybe 8 or 7 or 3 might help you in your either new business journey or the one that you're currently on. So here were my 10 learnings from the last 12 years. I've mentioned it a couple of times. Before you jump from employment into self-employment, this is a long haul. This is a long-term investment. I did 28 exit. Grant Cardone would be disappointed because it took me 12 years to 28 times the size of my business from year 1 to year 12. I didn't do it in 3 months, so sorry, Grant, but it's sustainable. I've talked about this before with business owners, and I mentioned it in passing. If you're looking at your business that you've got, and maybe it's struggling a bit, or you're looking to go into self-employment, decide what you're good at as an individual and as a group of people if it's established, and then find out what people want to buy. I have lost track with my investor's hat on of the number of pitches I've endured where people have invented something that doesn't solve a problem. Yeah, and they're getting very excited and animated about the thing they've invented, but it doesn't solve a problem. So no one's going to buy it. So you have to let people down a bit diplomatically normally and just ask some insightful questions. There's a key thing. I've been talking about this for the last 12 years with other business owners. When you're going into business, or when you're in business, set a long-term objective. And I call it the magic number, because we're only in business, if you think about it, we're in business for a number of reasons. But there's one fundamental, is we want to make it pay. We don't just want to take a salary. We want a capital value that we've built in the business. So decide on your magic number. I've written a book about it, which is the 11 Commandments and the 7 Cardinal Sins of Selling a Business. That's it's a bestseller. I've given away over 5,000 copies in the last 12 years. It is available on Amazon, but I tend to give it away because I want people to know the do's and don'ts. And then once you've decided what your idea, a bit like Alex did with me in Dubai back in 2010, where do you see your life? How do you feel about it? And then work back. What are you going to do? What are the steps? Where are you going to be? Where are the milestones with each year? And then break that down into quarters and days and weeks and months rather. So it's starting with the end point in mind and then working a plan as to how you're going to get there. Masses of setbacks and disappointments. I nearly took my life in that journey early on. And were it not for the help and support of other people, maybe I wouldn't be talking today. Definitely value yourself first. That doesn't mean to say that when you take on staff, they're not important too. But make sure that you are rewarded by the company, separate entity first. And you can do it on a shoestring. I set up on a shoestring originally in 2008 because I had no investors at the time. They came in 2 years later. It's really hard. All I had when I set up in business with no investment was a credit card. I had about £2,000 left. So I maxed out the credit card. I got a website done and business cards, and then I networked like crazy. But if you're thinking about going to business, try and get someone to back you, or a team of people, or a group of investors to back you. And there is no profit and loss. There's nothing, because the company doesn't exist. It's pre-revenue. They're backing you. So when you go to pitch for investment, don't bore them with lots of Excel spreadsheets about the future's orange and how they're going to be. There's going to be £10 million in 3 years on the bottom line. They're not interested because it's make-believe. What they're interested is in you and what your expertise is, and they're backing you. So it's a soft issue. It isn't about spreadsheets. I'm still learning. It's good to seek the wise counsel of others, but go with your gut feel. The best things in life aren't built by committee. It is good to take soundings. Everyone will have their take and their view and their perspective, but go with your gut feel, your intuition, and I've been spending the last 12 years helping other business owners build a talented team that are better than you. Make yourself redundant from your own company, from the day-to-day. So exit the day-to-day of the business, not necessarily sell up and exit at the same time. And this has been hard for me because of the life that I'd spent for decades that the therapist identified. I was a workaholic. So even if you're setting up and you're just you in your business, make sure you have time for the people that matter most to you in your life, and they're not crowded out. So make sure when you're planning your diary, they go in first into your diary schedule. So that's whether you've got children, your other half, close friends, because they are going to be essential on that journey. And just really to finish up with what my life's like now, because we started, didn't we, at the beginning? I'm having fun. I've had fun for a few years now. I wasn't having fun when I was on the top of the Burj Khalifa, but I am now. I've got more children now as well. So it's been a fruitful life. Six is fine.
Are you stopping there?
Sorry?
Are you going to stop at 6?
Yeah. I'll let the younger generation, the millennials, take that mantle over. I'm a late baby boomer. I'm done. I have several businesses. I'm a non-exec for other businesses, and I work with 2 charities, as I mentioned. So I've got a busy life. I'm just as busy as I was when I had one business or when I had one career as a bank manager. I'm just as busy. But the difference is that I'm doing the things that I like to do with the people I like to do them with. I've actually got some personal savings now. I've got a second home on the Med. Boats, motorcycles, I mean, they're trappings, but my relationship with them has changed now. They aren't status symbols for me. They're just an opportunity to have fun with friends and family. And in fact, with the boat that's moored in the Med, I get tourists coming up unsolicited, wanting to charter it. So there's a whole travel business there. I recently was asked a couple of weeks ago, could I retire now? Yes, I could, but I won't, because for me, the old-fashioned retirement is one step before death. You know, you work for 40 years, you retire on a state pension, and then you die. Well, that model has gone, and it's certainly not in my head. Retirement to me is doing the things I want to do with the people I do them with, and enjoy the life that I really do want, because we're a long time dead. And that does mean, that does mean helping others. That could mean altruistically, because I'm involved with an orphanage in Albania. Or it could mean investing in someone's business, or it could mean giving them a job, because they could add value to the companies that I've got. So helping others isn't necessarily me being Mother Teresa, because I'm not. There's only one Mother Teresa, but there's different ways of helping people. either out of your poverty or your wealth. And I think that for me, that sums it up really, that I've reached a point, and it's taken 12 years in my life, or it's certainly a decade, to be comfortable with who I am. And you were part of that journey as well, Andrea, about speaking authentically from the heart. Being honest with people, not being a caricature or giving a veneer. And it's easy, particularly for us guys, to create a veneer and be an actor. I'm just myself. And I know that not everyone in the world will like me. I'm comfortable with that, as long as the right people like and love me.
Well, it's been so profound to watch and to see where you've come from, where you are now, and to see the inspiring future that you're living forward. Thank you so much for being so open and vulnerable, because as you say, it's true, most men would not share the emotional side. They would just share all of the outside stuff. So thank you for that. I do have a question though, because as you described only doing what you love with the people that you love, for a new entrepreneur or someone who's making this shift, you've suggested that we should really focus on doing the things that we already know that we're good at. You got lucky, we could call it luck. You were able to move into an industry that you knew and that you liked and that you could thrive in. So what would you say to someone about the passion side of things, about being able to do what you really love? What if what you really would like to do entrepreneurially isn't what you're really super great at? Or to put that another way, what if all of the training that you've had, either through corporate or your life experience, doesn't light you up? Would you still suggest that at this critical stage, starting a new business should be around the things that you're best at?
No, in short. I'll expand on that. Just because it's a passion doesn't mean to say it's a business. It may not even be a job. It might be, because a passion that doesn't have a business model could be a hobby. It could be something that you really passionately believe and you could be involved in. It could be working in a charity, a not-for-profit. Not all passions are quantifiable as businesses. So you've got to think very carefully. And if someone's got a passion and they want to pursue that dream, is maybe team up with someone else or another organization, or get some experience in that and work alongside. I spent 7 years as an apprentice in mergers and acquisitions working for someone else. I never had any experience in mergers and acquisitions, but I learned a lot. And so maybe don't take the jump immediately to setting up a business tomorrow. Maybe work with someone or other people that share a similar passion, or you're aligned with them. And so gently put your foot into the bath rather than jump into a hot bath.
That's really helpful.
Does that help? And then maybe there's a business that comes off the back of it. I love going to Albania because my other half is from there, and I love the beaches, and I want to share that passion with other people. So I set up a travel company earlier this year. Isn't it funny? I set up a travel company during a global pandemic. No flights, but it's my passion. So yeah. So and I think you've got to think very carefully about it, but maybe hedge your bets and associate with another person or another organization and see how that goes. And maybe there's an opportunity. Passion is one thing. Maybe you have another idea when you're collaborating with other people. Maybe the first idea for business adapts and it looks different. That's a really good question.
Yeah. Well, thank you. I think this is certainly going to be helpful for people. As you heard Rob mention, we did co-author a book, The Top 10 Traits of Highly Resilient People. So if you'd like to get into his mind to understand a little bit more about his grit and determination, definitely check out the book. And later this year, you will be able to see Rob sharing his story. We actually recreated that elevator ride to the top of the Burj Khalifa in a new documentary about the top 10 traits of resilience. But Rob, we know that you as an investor and as a mentor, you are opening up space to help other people. Can you tell us a little bit about that?
Yeah. I weekly I get approached either in person or via LinkedIn, um, from business owners or that are looking for coaching, mentoring, and I do have a few clients, private clients, but I only have, like everyone listening to this, I only have 24 hours in the day. So it occurs to me that I could help more people, but do it on a group basis. So group coaching internationally. So initially a 12-month program, once a month, a group of us as business owners, facilitated by me, or maybe there's someone that wants to get into business but is not too sure, can join this group. And we can go through some of the key challenges and the things that need to be considered. So, and I want to document that and journalize that for a year with a group of business owners in different countries, acting effectively like a mini mastermind group, as it were, where a self-help group where there's learnings between each other across national boundaries. And we'll document that. And at the end of the 12 months, I'd like to co-author a book with those business owners. Maybe they supply a paragraph or a chapter of their experience of growing their business in their country, in their industry. It might be 5 of us. It could be 50 of us. What if there's 500 of us? Wouldn't that be a fantastic book? You think of the gem and the value that would be contained in there. So that'll be all part and parcel of the 12-month program. So if anyone is interested in going on that journey, get in touch with me at rob.goddard at robgoddard.co.uk. You won't forget the name. And in fact, it's up on the screen. Ping me an email if you'd like to find out more. It would be great to go on that journey for a period of time with a number of people listening and watching this program. Thanks, Andrea.
I love it. That is going to be a powerful program. I love the idea. Brilliant idea to document it and then have a book that could also help other entrepreneurs later.
Yeah.
Not only the entrepreneurs who go through this program with you, they'll get the benefit of becoming a published author and sharing their story with the world.
Yeah.
But that will be very valuable to other people to see, how in a year's time you could grow a business.
Yeah, from real people, because it's not about me. Even though I'll bring it together, it's not about me, it's about them and the challenges they face. And I've found through trading internationally, 80% of business problems are the same. Doesn't matter whether you're in Finland, Brazil, the UAE, they're the same. There's 20% difference with culture and locality, but 80%, most business issues are identical the world over. And it doesn't matter what sector you're in. So I think that could be a really powerful book. It could be quite a thick one.
Yeah.
Most of my books are really thin, but that would be fun.
Yeah, I look forward to seeing more about that. Well, Rob, thank you very much. This has been so insightful and so enlightening on so many fronts. And I know that this is going to be truly helpful to people who are weighing the possibilities of striking out on their own. So thank you again for your generosity.
Pleasure.